Hey there, Russ here. Welcome back to the shop. Okay, I have a couple quick subjects I want to talk about here, but yes, I have changed. Decided to clean up my act. Anyway, what I want to talk about first off is remember this light? I bought some of these. I used one in the kitchen. It's just they say they're for garage use. Anyway, I found a second one of these. This one here in particular has now gone bad. If you remember on the first one, the casing kind of melted enough that the thing fell down and it all fell apart and was hanging by all the wires on the individual parts. And I took that one apart and I was kind of making some lights using my Ryobi batteries for these fixtures here. But anyway, I replaced that in May with that one that came apart with this one. And this thing worked until for about 2.5 months. And then it started flickering. Every now and then you get that flash of this thing. And it kept getting a little worse and a little worse till now it takes about 10 minutes and it starts flashing. And I thought, it's overheating is what it's doing. Because when you turned it off and let it cool off, when you turned it on, it'd work okay for a while. So I took it down and I drilled the holes in it. Because if you know that this is the inside of this piece here. This is just all encased, and there's no way for that heat to really get out of this area, and it just fills up. This thing is hollow all the way up to the very tip here, so this is just air that's collecting the heat all through here. Now, maybe theoretically it should dissipate some of that heat through this, I don't know, but I think it was overheating, so I took and I drilled 4 holes in it. That slowed it down a little bit, I noticed. It was taking just slightly longer for it to start blinking. But again, it's progressively getting worse. So I took the light out and I went to put a new one in. And again, after only 2.5 months for this one. But before I put that one in, I drilled the holes for it already. So it has 4 holes in the case to help get some of that heat out of there. The higher up you can put that hole, the better off you probably can be. I wasn't brave enough to bring that all the way up because I wasn't sure where that metal started in here. So, but anyway, where it's at, it's got to help. There's no doubt about it. That's going to get rid of some of that heat. So, I did it to that one. We're going to see what happens. So that's a thing in progress. But I can't believe that I actually have had 2 of these go bad like that. The first one just melted. And this one, like I said, just started breaking down. So, what am I going to do with this now? I don't know. We'll do something. We got to reuse it for something. I don't know what yet, but we'll figure it out. I looked around to see if I could find this circuit board, which takes it from AC to DC. I think 80 volts. But I think what I want to do is hook up to this and run a test load on this light to see what kind of voltage and what kind of amperage this thing is actually drawing through that little PCB. So anyway, I just thought I'd update you about the overheating problem on this type. All the other ones that are the black ones, they don't have these diffusers on them. So the heat in that thing doesn't quite get as hot as it does with this thing all enclosed, apparently. So apparently it gets just a little too warm for that PCB board. The PCB in here. And so hopefully drilling holes it's got to help. So we'll see. We'll see if the next one has a problem. So, and the one I got in now, I bought that one and this one at the same time. So they came from the same place. I've seen these out there, but I've only seen one brand. They all look identical here, except for the color. I've seen it in the white and the gray. So, but other than that, it's exactly the same style. So I think there's only one company out there making these things, and they're just selling it under a bunch of different names. Be careful about buying the one with the diffuser on it if you don't want it to have a problem that I've been having. Although I really like this because with the diffuser on it and just a simple light fixture in my kitchen, instead of that chandelier thing I used to have, this one up in there, and it actually is an attractive. It's more than enough. It's a good light for in the kitchen. It gives you lots of light out of it. For 60 watts, it puts out 6,000 lumens, I think, on this one in particular. So it does light up that kitchen very nicely when I use it. So I really like these for my kitchen use. And these things are great for a few other places like that. If you have a ceiling light that you want to put a light in there to get a good light, that is a great alternative now that LED has come up with this idea. So I think the LEDs are going to be a great addition to light fixtures around the home. But they got a little ways to go to kind of get all the bugs out of all these different ones. So, because so far, even the little single light looks just like a regular incandescent bulb. Those things, they do seem to get pretty warm, and I'm kind of thinking they still got some minor issues in their designing of these things to fight the heat. But we'll see. We'll see where it goes. If you don't want to have this kind of problem with overheating on the fixture, then you might want to stick to the ones that don't have the diffuser on it for now, because those things are made out of aluminum on the frame, and there's no diffuser to help capture that heat in it, so the LED can really dissipate that heat through the fixture of it a lot easier. So we'll see. But I do like this style, and I think it looks good in the house for a light fixture. They also make an extension. It's like a 5 or 6 inch extension that screws onto here, and then that can then screw it up so it has it hanging down from the ceiling a little ways. So it's not a bad idea and a bad design, and I think that it can be useful in the house, not just in the garage, for lighting. But I think they still got a few bugs to work out. Anyway, I'll let you know if this new one overheats. Hopefully it won't. So, but I've had 2 out of 3 now have an overheating problem, it looks like, on the ones that I've bought. I do have one right up here on my ceiling. That was the first one I put in, and that's been in there for over 2 years now. And I have to tell you, that thing has not missed a lick since I put it in there. So that one is doing well. But that's only one out of 4 that I can confirm a good working one. Hopefully this other one with the modification might last too. I'm not sure why that one isn't overheating like the rest of them do, but who knows? Anyway, so much about this thing. The other thing I wanted to talk about is this fella right here. And you know what this is. This is that circuit breaker you can buy to reset it. And you can use it for an on and off switch by just pushing it. This thing broke on me already. I never had it installed. It's a 120 amp one. So I went online to see if anybody was having problems with them, and I wanted to take this apart, which I have done. I drilled out my rivets down here so that I can pull the pins out and take it apart. There's not much you can do with them when they do this. There was just a little thin plastic piece that retained this over and locked it down. And that broke, and so now there's nothing you can do with it. So, but what surprises me is I went out there and got curious about if anybody had any problems with these after that. And I found out some pretty shocking things. If you want to go look at circuit breakers and people that experience these things have a lot of not being very dependable. And that they tell you that the only 2 brands you should buy if you're going to use this style, the only 2 brands are Bussman and Blue Sea. But both of those cost more than twice as much as these cheap ones do. These are about $15. The Bussman is a little over $40, and that's here in America. But I don't think these things are worth anything anymore. I've decided. I don't think I would even use the Buss ones. I would not use these things anywhere because these things are extremely susceptible to overheating and causing them to pop prematurely. And that's what happens. All the ones they were testing, they were getting 100 amp ones and they're popping at 30 amps under a load. And so I thought, wow. And you just don't know what they're really going to do. So I would avoid these things in my electrical work from now on. And I do recommend that you do too. So then the question is, what do you use? This is actually very convenient in the fact that you had your switch and your breaker all built in together. But I don't think that would be such a good idea. If you're talking about under 50 amps of power, I would just go to an inline fuse type, the ATC, and just go with these things. you'll find that you won't have any issues. And when they blow, these have been using these things for decades in automobiles. So it's a very reliable way to get power. But I wouldn't go over 40 amps in one of these things. If you go above that and you want to have a fused unit, like right at a battery, 100 amp hour battery, then you really want to go to an ANL type fuse and put that in your system, and then put a regular heavy duty off switch. Now these things, that's the other thing, is the fuse isn't too bad. You're going to be around $10 or so by the time you buy the fuse and the holder, and you better keep extra fuses on hand, which are about $4 or $5 a piece. A lot more expensive than these little ATC type. But when you get into higher amperage, you got to use the heavier fuses. Is all there is to it. So always make sure you have a couple extra too if you're going to fuse something with one of those. Like if you're doing a power station and that's the fuse of choice, a 100 amp fuse coming off the battery, then put a couple extra ones in the case right near there so that you can replace that on the fly if you need to. So, but I was thinking about these. By the time you buy the AL fuse and this, you're going to be around probably $25 or $30. So I was kind of thinking, this thing has a lot of limitations too. I saw a couple of reviews on this, and the contact points on these things were actually getting pretty, they got pretty nasty looking pretty quickly when the guy was turning them on and off with a load on them at different amperage. And I was thinking, just seems like a lot of money for what you have. And I got to thinking, so lately, and I kind of turned my interest to these. If you know what these are, this is called a knife switch. They use them in, the mad scientists in laboratories have them mounted on the wall. And Frankenstein made these things famous. But they make these in all different grades and that. This is a cheapy one. I wouldn't put more than about 10 amps through this thing if I was going to use it consistently. But there's no reason why you can't take something like this. And they make these things up to a 250 amp rating. In fact, I've been looking at those, and I found that the cheapest one that you can get is the one that's used on the 12-volt battery system that you can, it mounts. One of them comes with the post-type mounting. So it has a post clamp on one on the outlet, and it has the post in on the other, just a regular post, so you can hook your battery cable on the other side. And you can use one of these then to turn it on and off, so you put a master switch on the battery. And that's one of the things that I've seen out there. And you can buy those for about $13 or $14, either with the top mounted type of post on a battery or the side mount. Now, I'm looking at that side mount one, and I think I can actually use that. And instead of having the two terminals here, you take the battery bolt out of the one, then you have two major full copper outlets that you should be able to hook two wires onto it and to power through it, and use a knife switch for your main switch instead of something like this. I think that you would have less failure, and you also would see if you were having a problem pretty quick on the fly. And it would be easy to make a cover for one of these things so that if you want to take it loose, you can still reach this and lift it up off of there in an emergency. So it still works great as an on and off switch. But yet, it also, I think, would be a lot more durable than even one of these things. So, I've actually been leaning toward trying out these knife switches as my master switch control on my power stations, because you can probably buy these pretty cheap, and I've seen a lot of different designs with the pole. And I should tell you, you can get these in a single pole, double pole, triple pole, and up to 4, I think, where you have 4 bars. And when you lift it up, 4 bars come up and come down and lock. So there's lots of ways you could utilize one of these things. And in fact, if I took one of these and used it as a double pole, you could probably then put 20 amps into it by splitting your power intake between both bars, so that when you disconnect it, they both get disconnected together, and you have two bars that are running this power circuit together on a double throw. So you can actually get a pretty good safe switch. And like I said, some of them also come with their own cover and with the slots in it, so that all you see is this little handle on it, and they just sit down over it to cover it. But you can make a cover for these easy too. But I've been playing with these things. I think it would actually be kind of a cool look on your power station if the master power switch, or actually almost any power switch, you could use something like this for the power switches, and maybe use a plexiglass to cover it so that you can still see the switch inside, and that you know that this is how you turn your switches on and off. I think it'd make for a very cool looking power station if you use these things. So anyway, the main thing I was going to tell you is you should get rid of these things if you got them. Even if they haven't failed on you yet, I don't know that I would ever really trust these things. And at this point, I think going a little simpler is probably the way to go for a lot less money. I'd buy this for about $2, and this is the cheapie. You can buy it in a good amperage one for around between $10 and $15, maybe up to $20 for a double throw, double pole one. And they come in a wide variety of double throw, double pole, single pole, double throw, and all sorts of different things. So you can figure out what to use them for. I think we've lost something though with these things. I don't know why I haven't turned on to these. So I'm going to be using these a lot on a lot of my stuff, just to play with them and see how they work for switch on and off switches. So I think they're a little more nostalgic than that simple little toggle switch that you usually put on. Something like that would be very cool to use instead. So anyway, food for thought. I wanted to kind of share these two things with you. I also want to come back and tell you a little story about this little fella, a soup bone, and Missy. It's kind of a funny story, and take a little while, but I'll try to share that with you next time, because this one's getting pretty long. And I have a few other things that we want to talk about, but I mainly wanted to update you on that and warn you about these. Now that I've been looking at these in detail, I don't think I will use these. I'm going to take them off of everything that I've used them on so far, and probably switch it over to just a regular manual switch of some kind and a fuse, depending on the amperages and what I would put into it. But yeah, the ATC and the ANO fuses, that's how I would do it. 50 amps or above, use the ANO. Below, you should be able to get by with just the ATC type fuse without any problem. So anyway, I want to thank you for stopping by. Your thoughts on any of this, let me know. If you have any questions about anything else, I said, if you want to talk about something new and crazy, let me know. I appreciate any thoughts. So in the meantime, you guys take care. And if you like this video, you learned something here, hit that like button. Lets me know I'm doing something right, at least. Most importantly, though, please come back again, because I'm nowhere near done. Thanks, and we'll see you guys again very soon.